3, 2, 1.
Never has there been a better time to be alive in human history. If you're not feeling it, you must discover why. Join Matthew Bolton in developing and applying a framework of objective optimism toward a flourishing life of meaning, health, and happiness. Here's your host, Matthew Bolton.
Hi everybody, welcome to Mr. Brightside. I'm Matthew Bolton. Today's show is an interview with guest Edita Atteck. She's a breakthrough strategist for women entrepreneurs around the world. But this show is not just for women, it's not just for entrepreneurs. The ideas she talks about are applicable to anybody. So she talks a lot about inner mastery, stress, the relationship of thoughts and emotions, the conscious and subconscious, but it's not so complicated as it might sound. She puts it in very easy to understand terms, and I think that there's a lot of value for anybody here looking to live their best life, which is what we're doing on this show, in achieving what we were talking about as an optimized mindset. I just found so many useful ways of describing things and conceptualizing things that I can take away and now feel stronger about the way I think about living my best life in all aspects. So I really encourage everybody to listen to what she has to say, learn about her masterclass coming up, and also about her book. So we'll learn all about that. We'll just go right to the interview right now. Everybody enjoy. All right, welcome now to our interview. I'm with Edita Atteck. Edita is a breakthrough strategist for ambitious women entrepreneurs around the world, helping them to create an identity that matches the outcomes they desire in their life and business. She is the author of Awaken Your Inner Leader, Transform Stress, Develop Emotional Mastery, and Thrive. And we might describe this as a busy professional's roadmap to freedom. Edita, thank you for coming on.
Thank you so much for having me, Matthew.
All right. So I see you're a fellow Canadian, although you were not born Canadian. Maybe a little bit of a quick background. Where are you from and what led you to entrepreneurship as a focus?
Sure. So I was born in Slovakia in Europe, and I came to Canada when I was in my 20s. And what led me here was my husband. So I made Canada my home. And my road to entrepreneurship is really not something that I ever expected to travel. It's in many ways it was a coincidence, perhaps I should say, and now I am discovering that this is who I was meant to be. Like, we change throughout our entire lives, and I think I'm coming to a place in my life where I feel like something has opened up inside of me. I have the bravery, I have the courage, I have the craziness, I have the risk-taking factor, and I am taking the entrepreneurial road.
All right. Well, excellent. I wonder if you have an idea on this just before we get into entrepreneurship. Why do you think many immigrants become entrepreneurs? There seems to be an inordinate number as a group of immigrants who become entrepreneurs than natural-born citizens in Canada and the States, for example. Do you have any idea, any theory on that?
That's an interesting question. I have never, ever thought of that, to be honest. It also probably depends on the type, on the timing of the immigration, right? Originally, when some of the immigrants came here, like, I don't know, in the 60s or 80s, they were probably, working in factories or whatever else came for them. But I think just the mere fact, and this is my theory, I am not claiming any truth to this. I think the mere fact that you take that risk of going to a completely new place and, being completely open to unknown, it just opens up something inside of you that you develop this courage and have the taste for risk. Like when I came here, I followed my husband. I didn't speak English. I speak a few other languages, so we didn't have problems communicating. But when I think back now, like how I came here, with the amount of risk that I took, when you think about it a couple of decades later, you're just, oh, wow, like that was a crazy move, but it worked out. So I think it's probably our taste for risk, because opening up the doors to unknown, it's a massive personal transformation and personal development experience.
Right. I guess, yeah. So it's not just the culture, but it's just the actual people who actually do get up and go to another place. Of course, they're risk takers. That's interesting. And it's not your business to theorize about that, but I just thought I'd throw it out there and see. What is entrepreneurship in your view? How do you define entrepreneurship?
Oh my gosh, there's so many good questions. Yeah. No, you know what? I love questions that open up, like, sometimes I jump into an answer right away, but I love these types of conversations when we just dive in.
Yeah, you don't have to know right away, right?
That's right. To me, entrepreneurship is a deep desire and a longing to have a mission, to have something bigger than ourselves. And I'm not downplaying corporate world or, regular jobs at all, because I've been there long enough. But I think in entrepreneurship, there is something that, you become the creator of the work. You don't have anyone standing above you. So in my view, entrepreneurship is something when we have such a deep calling inside of us, that we create the discipline and the commitment, and we have the intention, and we pursue no matter what. And from my understanding, entrepreneurship for me is really a deep calling for something that I want to create, something that I want to deliver to the world, and perhaps leave a legacy. And it's more than just getting a pay.
Yes, right. I'm getting that out of your definition, and I kind of thought about it this way before, but it's becoming more clear that it's not all connected with business per se. It's about creation. It's about following a calling and creating something new in the world. And that's, instead of, helping someone else build their thing is a good way to make a living as well. But entrepreneurship is more about creation, bringing something new.
Yeah. Now, this is not to say if somebody goes into entrepreneurship because all they want to do is to, pay a paycheck to themselves. I'm not saying that's a wrong definition either, right? Everybody does it for a different purpose. To me, entrepreneurship is a deep calling.
Yes. Yeah, right. And you could be entrepreneurial as a part of another business that's not necessarily your own full thing. I think.
Totally.
How about this then? What is your view of wealth? I've heard you talk about it a little bit when people associate it with greed or something. What is your view of wealth, and how do we attain it? Is greed necessary?
Wealth. It's, to me, when I think of the word, and it's funny how every word has such a powerful energy.
Yes.
I think the word wealth, and first of all, I notice the sensation in my body, and it just sort of feels like an opening. And to me, it's definitely more than money. To me, is our ability to wake up in the morning and feel inspired and grateful and motivated. To me, it's our ability to connect with other people. So to me, wealth is our health as well. So for me, wealth is this broad category, and money and business is part of it. Okay. But I've seen people who are financially incredibly wealthy and they were incredibly poor, and the other way around. So wealth to me is something really big, and it's much more than money.
All right. That's excellent.
There you go.
Beautiful. How about this? How do you help people align with their mission, as you say?
Yeah. So, often in life I find, and this was true for myself, like I wanted to achieve something, we draw a vision board and we have a word of the year or whatever else. And we have these external goals, but we don't achieve them often. I mean, I raise my hand. I've been there so many times. I created my goals and I had this beautiful vision board and I took pictures and everything. Nothing out of that happened. And later on, I realized that unless I am the person, I have the qualities inside me that are aligned with that vision, I can create goals as much as I want to, and I will have a really hard time reaching those goals because, on another aspect, our goals come from our conscious mind, what we think on the surface. But then there's the part of us that is far more hidden from us, and that's part of our subconscious mind. And if there is any kind of a blockage or misalignment between what we believe subconsciously, then it's very hard for us to reach those goals. So I often talk about the term I use, inner power. And to me, our inner power is everything that exists inside of us that we need to bring to the surface and work and develop in order to achieve what we want externally.
All right.
If that makes sense.
It does. And we're going to get more into it. I want to get into the relationship between the subconscious and the conscious and all inner mastery and these kind of other concepts that you talk about. Before we move into mindset, I'm curious. One curious question is why you have a particular focus on women or women entrepreneurs, and it's nothing to do with social justice. As I said to another guest recently, I asked the same thing. But why women? I
think it's been actually a recent switch. I've worked both with men and women. I have had excellent male clients, and in the past, I used to not necessarily focus. I had a mix of clients, both from corporate world executives and small business owners. And last year, I made a very conscious switch from having a broader professional community to help, to very specifically to women entrepreneurs, because they have so many challenges. Additionally, I would say generally from my past experience, women were far more committed to their inner work than men were. And this is not to say that, as I said, I had some exceptional men clients that I absolutely love to work with. But then when more and more I talk to some women, especially in the entrepreneurial path, when there is so much to create, so much busyness, and then they become moms, they become partners. I guess that first is partners, then moms, or whatever order it comes in. And then all of these layers of complexity, and then getting access to funding and everything else. So I kind of thought, you know what, maybe I'm just going to niche down only entrepreneurs and very specifically to women, so I can help them really balance out that life work, or, you know, somebody says life work balance, life family balance, whatever you want to call it. So they are really whole individuals, and they can support their families. They can, you know, create healthier relationships, but they can also have these ambitious goals that they want to. At the same time, I feel women put a lot of pressure on themselves, you know, when they are running all of these different things. So that's actually a very recent switch, and absolutely nothing against men. I loved working with them, and there are some amazing, you know, male partners that I have had partnerships with. But right now, I just feel right now, this year, next year, right now, my space is with helping women.
Yes, and that's what I was curious about. I wasn't implying that at all. Just want to hear, why is that your space, and why do you feel such a connection that way, and why is that a focus? How is your message applicable to people who are not women or who are not entrepreneurs?
Honestly, the message that I have is applicable to men entrepreneurs, and it's applicable to a human being who really has the intention to become a better person, and has the intention to contribute more, and has the intention to grow. You know, when you are in business, it does make a lot of sense to niche down. Otherwise, you know, when you're trying to speak to everybody, you're pretty much speaking to no one. So you need to make a business decision where you want to stay. But in terms of my message, I really believe the underlying everything is I am addressing humanity. And we are humans first before we are entrepreneurs, and we are, you know, brothers and sisters and sons and daughters and whatever else. And that's how I believe we need to look at even the entrepreneurship and the entrepreneurial path.
All right. That's excellent. Thank you very much. I've got it all kind of just broken down a bit to organize it a bit for myself, but I know it's all interrelated here. You know, it's all integrated. I'm going to go on what you're calling mindset as a focus right now. What does it mean for someone to be a whole human, as you say?
Oh my gosh, that's an amazing question. A whole human to me, and I'm making it up on the spot right now, is Good. Whatever is coming to me. So a whole human is an individual who is connected to the entirety of their being, and that includes the physical body, that includes the emotions, that includes our thoughts, our habitual thoughts, that includes the environment, because we are, you know, a product of our environment as well. And very often we isolate ourselves when we go very deeply into intellectual thinking. We kind of forget that we are part of everything around us. So a whole human being is an interconnection of the inner power existing within us, which we can get into later, and our connection to the environment.
All right, great. Thank you. And I like the word integration. So I like to be like an integrated human being, a whole human. It sounded like something like that, and I want to see where you'd go with it. And look, all of this stuff, I kind of call this show, any of the work, blog stuff I write, anything I do on the show, I call it thinking out loud. That's what I'm here trying to do. And then from there, develop, you know, walk away and clear up my own conceptual thinking. So, you know, have no fear with anything I throw at you. You're doing great. Anyway, how about this? What does it mean for someone to thrive? You have that word. That's one of my big words, is thrive. So I'm really curious what does that mean for someone to thrive?
I guess the words thrive and flourish would belong to the same category. And, you know, interestingly enough, and a little bit of an aside, but we'll get back to thrive. Somebody asked me another podcast the other day, you know, if I am thriving or something along those lines, does it mean I'm happy all the time? And my answer to that is no. Right? We don't need to be happy all the time. To me, thriving means that I have and now I'm going to get a little bit more specific, a well-regulated nervous system inside my body that helps me rise to the challenge or whatever stressor comes, and allows me to go back into my equilibrium. And, thriving allows me to have the ability to feel the emotions of peacefulness, of joy, of connectedness, of contribution, having the perception, because there is such a huge overlap between emotions and perceptions. And in fact, most of the things that we refer to as feelings or emotions are our perceptions. Feeling satisfied is really deriving from a thought underneath that I am here in the right place, and I have my needs fulfilled. So thriving is really our ability to be deeply connected to our environment, to be deeply connected to ourselves, and feeling whole.
All right. Well, I hear all that. You said thrive and flourish are connected. I actually use them interchangeably. So on that point, I'm with you. And also, as far as your other thing, I've said on the show many times about happiness. When I claim that I'm happy, I don't mean I'm just singing, dancing around all day like a lunatic or something. I mean, it's just, I'm a whole human, I guess, is part of it. And everything, the way you define it is very good. And I feel like that, and that's thriving to me too. You've said, as far as subconscious and consciousness, you said your subconscious mind is listening to you constantly. So choose your words carefully. I loved hearing that. Can you explain that a little bit?
Yes. So we use words in our everyday life, obviously. And, for some of us who speak more language, it gets even more interesting, because I always have this theory that every language has its own separate universe. Okay. And you communicate very differently in each language. And these words acquire some sort of an energetic meaning. I don't want to use any kind of, funny words here like vibration or something. But, when I say the word money, and I want you to sit with that word, it will mean something to you. You will feel maybe contracted or expanded or something, like any word that I say. So when I say that we need to watch our words, is that words represent, and they have a meaning, and we have certain associations with words. So we start saying to ourselves, I dread this meeting. I hate to go there. I am dumb. Recently, I saw LinkedIn. It was a few months ago. It was a post on LinkedIn. Somebody posted that there's absolutely nothing good about getting older. Getting older sucks. And I'm thinking, well, you know what, with that kind of an attitude, it will probably suck, because you are just, saying to yourself certain things. And when you say this often enough, there's something inside of you. Yeah, sure. Let me prove it to you. Getting older sucks. Mm-hmm. So that's why I always say, choose the words carefully, because if we use certain disempowering words on a regular basis, they will eventually become our reality, because we will keep assigning meaning to them. And that meaning that we store internally is going to impact us.
So you say your subconscious will tell you, it will show you, yeah, it does suck, because you've kind of programmed me to believe that it sucks. Is that what you mean? Kind of
that as well. And also I think our conscious mind, because if you keep thinking the same thoughts and using the same words. I was just talking to somebody today, and, interestingly, she said something along the lines, this is not working. I'm not getting any further ahead. I'm slipping back, mm-hmm. To my old disempowering habits. And I said, whenever we create a habit and we want to change it, it takes time to break that old habit, to pull it apart and replace a new one. But if you keep saying every time you have a minor failure, you're missing out on all the other small wins, but you're focusing on the small failure. You keep reinforcing the old pattern. So the same conversation I had with her, one of the few things, you can just start watching what words you're using towards yourself. You would probably never say that to anyone else. So yeah, I do believe words have a big impact on us. So if there's anything that, the listeners would want to try a different, just for 1 day or 2 days, very careful inventory of the words they're using to describe their experiences, or to describe, how they're thinking, how they're feeling.
Mm-hmm. I agree with that wholly. I mean, that's why I'm so concerned about what concepts we use, right? So how do we conceptualize money? What does that mean to you? I have to really figure out what it means to me, really, so that I can feel what that means as I use the word in my life, and every concept. If we can't think any better than the precision of our concepts. So that's why I really want to know, like, what does thrive mean? What does, all these things, because I want to be able to automatize them and let my subconscious just use, take that word and have it mean that thing that I've worked out consciously on my own. How can we partner up with our minds? This is an expression you said.
Yes. And I'm using that word because it sounds, again, more friendly as opposed to, if I were to use words, rewire or start using different vocabulary, people often kind of are not really sure. But when I say partner up, it's more friendly, right? So very often people turn their mind into their own worst enemy because very often we live what I call in the prison of our mind. We get so isolated in our thinking and we start believing we are our thoughts. And then everything we look at, we're looking at the world through that lens of these thoughts that we have inside our head. So partnering up with our mind is, number one, really being aware, consciously aware of what our thoughts are going through our head. And I always recommend people to have like a thought journal. And again, what we are able to be aware of is our conscious thinking. Another thing that I want, to include in the partnering up with the mind is really being very careful what meaning we assign to some of the words or some of the thoughts we create. And I can tell you pretty much with every client I work with, they will just sometimes state completely mundane things, when they're talking about the business or the relationship with their partner or whatever else. And then I will just bring it to them because as a third party listener, I am more aware when I can interrupt as opposed to when we are just thinking our own, there's nobody to interrupt us because we just keep repeating the same thing and we believe it's true. So when I point it out, I would often say, just notice what meaning you assigned to that word or to that thought. You may just say, when I don't have enough work, I feel bored. But underneath all of that, the meaning was I am unsuccessful. So I often, one thing that I always tell people, really start paying attention to your regular habitual thoughts. A thought journal is an amazing thing to have. And so then where I mentioned the understanding what meaning we assign to our thoughts, what words we use, and then what's beneath our awareness, obviously, is the subconscious programming, which is very difficult to work through on our own because it's so deeply embedded into us that it's just very hard. And that's where the word flourish comes and thrive, because we need another human being. With this person, we connect on a very deep level. We create a trusting relationship, and that person can help us uncover some of those stuck patterns in our subconscious. And, one of the things about the subconscious is that we used to think in the past that it was only from the time of birth that we start picking up subconscious patterns. But I remember I had a friend who adopted a child about, oh my gosh, I would say probably 15 years ago. And that child was just a few months old. And just to make the long story short, he was a healthcare professional. He took him to another high-level healthcare professional in another city to really, help to remove any possible trauma or whatever from the early adoption. And the interesting thing, I never, ever forgot that story. The other physician, he was actually from Montreal. He said, this child knew coming to this world, he's not wanted. And I was just like, what? Like, how is that possible? And now, the scientific evidence is showing us there's more and more coming to the surface that we pick up our subconscious patterns in the third trimester while we are in our mother's womb, which is like, wow. It is like, I get goosebumps when I think about that.
Yeah,
because
tripping me up a little bit.
I know. So, we accumulate all of this and, our subconscious functions, especially in our early years up to whatever, age of 8 or something like that. It can be plus or minus. It's like a sponge. It just takes in the program. It doesn't differentiate, is it good, is it bad? And anyways, this could be a completely different discussion as well. So our subconscious is incredibly powerful. And when we come back again to our goal setting, we set it from our conscious mind. What do we want? Yes. What do we think it would be nice? But maybe we have something subconsciously holding us back. What if my subconscious is telling me I'm really not wanted? What if my subconscious is telling me that I'm not worthy the money because I've heard my parents, arguing over money ever since I was very, very young? Or what if my subconscious is telling me that, I'm not good enough at something, I'm not smart enough, or whatever else it may be. So it's really important to get into a partnership while somebody else helps us partner up with our own mind.
Yes, I got it. And just that last part too, I hear, this is what I mean when I think about think and thrive. Your subconscious could tell you all kinds of things, but it's your conscious mind that has to be objective and look at things and really decide what is real. And then eventually your subconscious mind will catch up with that. Is that right? Maybe that your subconscious mind catches up with what your conscious mind finally really makes them believe? And then
I
it can
think
probably
ideally, the way I see it, that they want to be attuned, because to me, the conscious mind is kind of like 5 violin players trying to make or a little band, K-pop, who are trying to play beautiful music, but the subconscious is like an orchestra of thousands of players. Mm-hmm. And unless that orchestra of thousands of players is not singing the similar tune or supportive of the tune that is being sung by that small band, the small band is going to be drowned out. And that's why we so often sabotage ourselves. And we think we want this next thing. And consciously, we really want to create it. We even step towards actions. But subconscious is also something, the term that is used often is like a set point on a thermostat. And our subconscious can set us, in terms of our health, in terms of our finances, in terms of any other aspect of our life. It can be something preset because something we picked up really early in life, right? And that will put us into a certain category. And so when consciously we try to go for something else, our subconscious will say, oops, you already exceeded the set point, come back. So we often repeat the same thing. And, for me, I can very honestly say, and I said that on a few podcasts, for me, one of my subconscious blocks was really a connection between money and being a good person, having lots of money and being a good person. Because I think I may have experienced so many people in my surroundings when I was growing up who were, I don't want to label anyone, but I never wanted to live in that kind of a place. Although those people could afford anything. So in my mind, I have subconsciously created, be humble, and that will be a better way to live. You don't need to have a lot of money, but you will be a good person. And that kind of doesn't really help a lot when you want to go on an entrepreneurial journey, because then you're being pushed back. So we often need to work through these things. And even today, I often, see examples when I see somebody who is super rich and, you hear some of the horrible news. And I need to remind myself there are also other very rich people who have accomplished a lot and built their businesses, and they're good people. Not everybody is insane and greedy. That's money. So
certainly not. And that's what I meant. Just that the more if that's something that an idea you hold, your subconscious tells you that, then through experience and thinking again, eventually your subconscious can keep up and be more in tune with your consciousness. It's kind of.
That's what we ideally want. So our subconscious and conscious are in line, and our subconscious is supportive of what's happening on the top.
Right. And that's what I mean when I say think. You can do deliberate thinking and try to affect this subconscious as much as you can by really figuring out what's real. I want to move into what we'll vaguely call emotions, right? More directly than just mindset. What is the relationship between mindset and emotions? Because we want to feel a certain way, right? Ultimately.
Yeah. Huge. And that's where we come back to our concept of wholeness. Mm-hmm. We look in life and we separate things. This is our mindset, these are emotions, this is this, but everything is interconnected. To me, our thoughts, like mindset, just to break it down so the listeners understand or relate to what we are talking about in terms of mindset, is just a really collection of our thoughts and thought habits and beliefs, right?
Yeah.
But for us to separate our thoughts and our beliefs from emotions is impossible. I will tell you something to think about right now. You will immediately associate it with some kind of an emotion. Mm-hmm. If I were to tell you, can you recall somebody in your life, maybe in high school, who was extremely mean to you? Or, who backstabbed you? Mm-hmm. You will recall that person. You will think about that person. You will almost instantaneously have an emotional response. And maybe it may be minimal today. But if you really try to think about that person who was really nasty and bullying you in high school or whatever, you will probably have an emotional response. I don't necessarily want to talk to that person. I don't feel comfortable. I have this, it's old, it's long gone, but I still feel resentful. I still don't feel comfortable with that person. So emotions are just incredibly tied to our thoughts, because, neuroscience is telling us that there is a thought and it creates an emotional response, and that creates a behavior or an action response. We also have something that I refer to as something I would best explain as an instinctual emotional response. And, our, I don't have a better word for that, but let's say fear and anger. Yep. Fear in its purely instinctual state, when we are somewhere and there is a physically dangerous situation, we must feel fear. in order for us to be able to pick up the signals, to recognize that our bodies is giving us the cues, so we can do whatever we need to do accordingly to either run away or fight back or just collapse and just pretend we are dead. With anger, if somebody's crossing our boundaries, and these are what I refer to as instinctual emotions, we need to express anger when somebody's, is violating our boundaries. But then most of our emotions are truly our perceptions. When people tell me I'm feeling disrespected, is that a thought? Is that an emotion? It's a thought. This person is talking down to me and I am feeling disrespected. You can't feel disrespected unless you have the thought beneath that. Mm-hmm. So our emotions, our thoughts, and our nervous system and our immune system and our hormonal system, everything is interconnected. Mm-hmm. And emotions are this powerful energy. In some of the Eastern philosophies, emotions are considered to be like the water element. Mm-hmm. Not sure how it is in Korean.
I don't keep going. I don't know if I recognize this.
No. When you consider the human body is, depending on our age, anywhere between 70 to 90% of water, we are really emotional beings who think.
Right. That's right.
Not the other way around. But we pride ourselves that we have lived, for a long time in a way that we're intellectual beings who happen to have emotions, and if we don't like them, we can suppress them. It does not work that way. Yeah. You can suppress them only for so long because they are going to live in the body and they will eventually erupt on their own.
That's right. And that's why I say it's so important to care about what you think, because they are just going to keep coming wave after wave, if that's the water analogy, but they're there and we can only affect them over a long time. It takes a long time. For example, I have the idea about the bully, and then my idea about that person, you say I might not feel it so much these days because I've thought about it over years and really put into perspective. I don't feel so upset about it. And then because I really believe it. And then over a long time, my emotions can automatically tell me that, but it doesn't happen. I'll just change my mind about this and then my emotions will follow. It takes a real conviction and time, I think, to change your emotions fully. Does that sound like it makes any sense?
Yeah, this could be also subject to a longer conversation. Of course, emotions, we need to process them. We could sit here for a really long time. Yes. Yeah, our emotional intelligence, I always start with emotional literacy, is really recognizing emotions are a physiological expression in our body. Mm-hmm. And we need to respect them and we need to work with them as opposed to trying to, explode with them or suppress them, because the energy is going to go somewhere. If we explode with them, usually somebody else is hurting besides ourselves. And when we push them in, we are just, packing it all inside, and it's eventually going to fester inside.
All right. That's excellent. I was about to ask you about emotional literacy. You took it already. Great. Finally, on this, healthy self-regulated nervous system is essential, is what you say. I think you mentioned already, but just to clear it up before we move on, what does a healthy self-regulated nervous system look like?
Sure. And without going into any technical terminology, so I don't confuse anybody, because we could literally sit here, Matthew, for 3 hours discussing this subject. This would be like an amazing conversation. But I just want people to imagine, when I'm talking about the nervous system, I very specifically refer to the stress processing apparatus that is built into us. And to me, it's, if you imagine that, like an ocean wave rises up, reaches a peak, and it comes down, and then it dips beneath the surface of the water, and then it keeps continuing. In my view, our healthy stress response, our healthy nervous system regulation needs to be like that. We need to move in that wave-like fashion, so we constantly flow. There is a stressor, we respond to it, we activate energy, we rise up on that wave, we reach peak, and we need to allow ourselves to come back from that wave, reach the surface of the water, for lack of a better word, and then go beneath the ocean to release all of that, to relax, to restore, to sleep, and then be able to come back above the surface of the water again and rise. And what's happening in today's society is that we got these wave patterns stuck. It's like the wave is trying to go above, but it gets stuck because it doesn't know how to go any further. It doesn't know how to come down. So it freezes at the top or it freezes at the bottom. And that's why, we have a lot of health issues and mental health issues around the world. So I do believe we need so much more education and understanding how our stress processing apparatus works, how our nervous system regulation is connected to healthy thinking and healthy feeling. And the best way I can explain this, that we need to be in a state of flow in order for us to thrive and to be able to really live fully and not hold on to struggles that inevitably arise externally, is to have this healthy flow. So we get agitated, we get excited, we get angry, we get, elated with joy over something, and we reach the peak of that, and we are able to release it slowly, release all that energy, and then we're able to connect with somebody we deeply care with, because that's also part of our nervous system. It's, sometimes referred to as the social engagement part, because we thrive in connection with other human beings where we have the connection, and it's not just physical presence, it needs to be connection and trust. And then we can release and, go into the phase where we can rest and digest and sleep, and then we come back.
All right,
so to me, that's a metaphorical explanation of the nervous system.
No, we need that. We can't just be talking, like I say, in terms of their, self-regulated nervous system and all that. You have to put it in terms of this kind of thing. That's very helpful. Thank you. And I guess, so you mean we can't just be trying to keep it all even keel and straight. We need to feel anger and these emotions and create the energy. Then we have to come down from it. We have to flow this way.
Yeah, we need that.
Yeah.
We need that. Like, even if we exercise, we go up, right? We activate that energy. Like, just to be alive, we need to be able to go up and down, but it always needs to come back to the baseline and the dip beneath, so we can restore, relax, sleep, all of that. And then we can go again into activation.
Right. Okay, great. All right, then. How about this idea of inner mastery? What is inner mastery then? And I think you've also referred to an internal inventory, taking in that. What are these? What's inner mastery?
I know. So inner mastery or inner power. So the components
I love these terms.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. They include what I refer to the internal inventory, and these includes our habitual thoughts, our habitual feelings, nervous system regulation that we just talked about, our moods and our attitudes, our emotional expression, our beliefs. I already mentioned that. The way we act, the way we step into action, the way we choose to decide. So everything that we have internally inside us, that is part of our inner mastery. Very often we reduce it culturally to intellect, and that's not enough. Like, we are so much more. We are so much more, even just the small thing. And again, if listeners want to take that as a little takeaway, we often think that we need to think and analyze, just really being like so focused in our mind. But what if we could think in a way that we're also connected to our body, that we're connected to our gut, that we connected our feet to the ground and we feel the earth beneath us, and we feel the environment and the space inside us and around us, and then becomes aware thinking. And it's not to say that it's not focused. It just comes from a very different plane, because we connected everything together.
Yes, all right. And that's not what I mean by think and thrive, that you sit and just think about everything and analyze everything. It means that you do that at times. You have to think about things in your life and reflect and do strong reflections, and then set what's really true. And then you have to go ahead and live. You have to go and act pretty much automatically, as it were, right? Not everything is deliberate every moment. We don't function that way. So I can agree with all that. I want to know how you define resilience, this word. I'm very curious about it too, because a couple of weeks ago I had on Danny Bader, and he has a book subtitled The Path of Resilience. It's one of his talks, and he has a whole concept of resilience. I'm curious to hear this and see if I can't maybe make this concept even more powerful for myself. No, but really, it's not a challenge, but it's really helpful to hear different views. What is resilience? Yeah,
of course. So resilience, I guess, in its simplest definition, is our ability to spring back. And, it's a very popular word, and a lot of people are talking about resilience in the workplace and in their entrepreneurial path, in their health. So to me, I see resilience on three different planes. One, and again, just talking about the different aspects of the internal inventory, one will be like the mental resilience, the other one is emotional, and the third one is the physiological one, that is on the level of our nervous system. Ultimately, they're all connected together, right? Mental resilience to me is to be able to identify those conscious thought patterns that are not serving us that have an almost immediate response in our emotions and have a cascading response in our nervous system. Because if I start thinking that I'm not, let's say, just going back to that not being respected, whether, it's in our relationship or in our team or whatever, I have that, all of a sudden, everything inside me is going to respond to that because I'm not feeling safe. If I keep saying to myself, I'm not being respected, then that means potentially not feeling safe. That will create an emotion of either sadness or anger or whatever else it may be. That will create an activation energy in my nervous system. So again, everything is connected. Just on the mental plane alone, if we are able to reframe our thoughts, change our words, and again, we are talking only on the conscious plane here and with conscious thoughts. Mental resilience to me is our ability to change our thinking patterns so we break that cascading connection that comes afterwards. Okay. Emotional resilience, in my mind, is our ability to experience, no matter how powerful, and I don't like the word negative emotions. I like to say that every emotion is an information. Yeah. And when we look at that, we look at emotions in a different way. So emotional resilience to me is our ability to experience any form of emotion, regardless how challenging it is, being to experience it fully, being to able to release it and process it in a full way, instead of exploding with it, instead of suppressing it. So that means, let's say, we would choose anger. We feel the full amount of anger inside us, but it's not affecting us how we behave towards others or how we behave towards ourselves. We release that information inside of us. We recreate our boundaries and we come back to the baseline. Physiological resilience, intimately connected to the previous two. Mm-hmm. My stress response got immediately activated because anger is one of the primal emotions that is going to trigger my nervous system. My activation energy rises up. I'm going up on the curve, on the wave. If nobody has ever taught me how I come down from that curve, mm-hmm. the only way I may be able to soothe that imbalance, that tension, that agitation, activation inside me, and this is where our society as a whole has a big problem, is called coping mechanisms. Because I'll be staying up there for a long time, something else comes, I will be even more agitated, but my body doesn't know how to release that charge. Mm-hmm. I will have maybe too much alcohol. I will maybe have too much exercise because I don't know what to do with that powerful charge inside of me. I may reach towards something else. For somebody, it can be too much shopping. Any kind of activity, too much eating, I don't know what to do with myself. Let me go and have that huge chocolate cake in the fridge. And that's why we have so many coping mechanisms in our culture, and many of them are very unhealthy.
Right.
Okay. So that's my definition or my view of resilience.
Well, you certainly had an answer there, didn't you? You were packing one. Excellent. Thanks very much, Edita. How about this? What do you do in your personal life to nurture or promote, I guess, I was going to say inner mastery, but I'll add resilience as well. So how do you, what are some concrete practices that you do and people might do because this is important.
Yeah. So today, as I would say, as a very devoted practitioner of inner power, inner mastery, I have a 75-minute practice every single morning where I work with my entire nervous system, where I particularly use visualizations, and inquiries, where I also am able to now go deeper beneath the level of my consciousness, where I go into a place where my body is completely relaxed, but my mind is super focused. And I recognize what emotions are coming up for me more regularly, what emotions I want to release, what thought patterns may be coming up, what I want to bring into my regular sphere of experience. So I have a very deep practice today. That wasn't the case all the time. Mm-hmm. Somebody was asking me 75 minutes, that's insane. Start with 5 minutes. Mm-hmm. Most important thing is if you go to the gym and you are able to commit because you want to be physically fit, you need to commit to this as well. Start with 5 minute, create a ritual like brushing your teeth, mm-hmm. and start building. It can be a simple, meditation, body awareness practice, whatever. And then I always tell people when they want to go deeper, there's no better investment than investment in ourselves. Yes. If I were to go back into my youth today with my mind, the first thing I would do, I would invest in myself, mm-hmm. in my personal growth, in my personal development, because to me, we are our greatest asset, but we often like to think that whatever we get externally is more valuable than we are. So in order to build this inner mastery, we really need to be committed to it. You need to have discipline, and you need to train like an athlete, except you are training for your inner inventory, which is much harder to recognize. It's very easy for us to go and get muscles and get biceps. And to me, it's just start creating a 5 to 10 minute practice where you get to know, you pay attention to your body, you pay attention to your feelings. And when you start saying to yourself, oh, this is so boring, I much rather go to the gym or listen to some music, just imagine the power it can have to change your life. Mm-hmm. So this is not for everyone. But if you want to get somewhere, even in entrepreneurship, you need to train like an athlete. You need to have the discipline of an athlete. Otherwise, it's very difficult to get where you want to go to your destination. So I'm not sure if this answered your question, but
no, it does. That's what I meant. I didn't know if you're promoting meditation. I'm really thinking of that seriously more and more these days. And I think I have to invite somebody on who can really go deeper into that specifically and how that helps. You said that, it's not for everybody. I really think it ought to be for everybody because
it ought to be, but not everybody will have the commitment and the discipline. So, I spent well over 12 years. I was actually guiding groups, and I do produce recordings. But what I do, for people that I work with, I provide individual practices that are very specifically geared towards them, because there's so much more to meditation, just like there's so much more to any other practice. Mm-hmm. And anybody who wants to start with a new journey, I always say, find somebody you really connect with, who you develop a trusting relationship with, and start with small baby steps and build them from there.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Maybe I'll limit this now. One question on stress, because I think you mentioned this earlier, the idea of inner sabotage. How does stress trigger your inner saboteur? I've heard you say that. Can you talk about that? Because
yes,
people don't focus a lot on stress. They think, oh, stress part of life, but you really got to manage stress. I think it's very important to our mental and physical health. So please give us something on this.
Sure. Matthew, we could have a separate podcast on stress alone, just to let you know. So again, when we go back to stress, remember that we have this built-in stress processing apparatus. And every time there is a stressor, whether it's an external factor or our own thinking, our nervous system responds to that. And when our nervous system responds and we cannot complete the cycle, the stress cycle, we cannot go through these waves and continue being in this flow, we are going to be either stuck a little bit at the top above the surface of the water, going back to the metaphorical example, or it will be stuck beneath the surface, underneath the water. When we are stuck above, very often we feel agitated, we feel overthinking, we are overanalyzers, we are really quick, and we can easily be triggered by others into anger, into frustration, into whatever else. And when we stay in that state for long enough, eventually it's very easy for us to react in certain situations in not a very healthy way, whether it's in our personal life, whether it's in our business relationship, and damage some of these relationships, or be triggered so deeply by somebody else's behavior because we are so heavily agitated inside the body. On the surface, people sometimes look calm, but they have a lot of stuff happening. Mm-hmm. Or when people are, and again, this is very simplified, when we are stuck at the bottom beneath the surface of the level, we are kind of more, like we're numbed out. We are not really caring. We are, what's the word when you almost don't have an emotional expression?
Apathetic?
Yeah, that would be one possibility as well. So there are myriad of those. And then we also have maybe more sluggish digestive system. People who are often at the top, they're digesting fast, they're metabolizing fast, they're always hungry. They may have sleep problems. People who are at the bottom, they're sometimes people think they're very mellow, but sometimes these people are numbing out. So the key really, again, to a healthy nervous system and not becoming our own saboteurs is to have this healthy flow. And then when we are in that healthy flow and our body internally is thriving, we are much better students of awareness of what's happening in our thinking, how we are not triggered. I talk about triggers pretty much all the time with my clients. They go before an important client meeting. I just had this conversation a couple of days ago, and somebody was triggered by her partner because she assumed he should be doing something that he wasn't doing. And she said, he shouldn't be coming down like that. And, we just went into the conversation, what really was the reason for that. You cannot change him. You can become aware of your own triggers and how you respond to that. And that prevents the future cascading response between both of you. So, going back to the inner saboteur, we so easily sabotage ourselves. It's not even funny. And then other reason just besides the stress is our inner critic, who are you really being to go on this podcast? Who do you think you are? Right? Or whatever. Or who do you think you will go on that stage? Like, people will be laughing at you. And then, and if you don't know how to work with that inner critic, it can sabotage you.
All right. Well, you gave us a good one there again. Why don't maybe we'll kind of bring it home and tie it together. I want to get to your masterclass and your book, and that'll help us kind of cover things. Because I know we can go into depth on stress, as you said, a whole show, emotions, mindset. I think your masterclass and book will help us bring everything together. The masterclass is called Rewire for Success. Is that right?
Rewire for Success from the inside out, because I always talk about internal inventory, right?
Yes,
very good. It is designed for ambitious women entrepreneurs who also have a bigger mission, who really want to step into their inner mastery and who want to create this whole life, because business is just part of the life we want to live, and how we create that whole package, how we become better human beings, and how we also run businesses without running ourselves down. And that will be happening during the week of July 27th. And the link is, I believe you can provide it for the listeners after that. Yeah. It's editaatteck.com/community. And the book, anyone who wants a very cost-effective way just to get their toes wet in this whole topic of the stress processing apparatus, my book, Awaken Your Inner Leader, Transform Stress, Develop Emotional Mastery, and Thrive, is available worldwide on Amazon.
Oh, and I do want to ask you a bit about it, if you're all right to go a little bit here.
Sure.
Yeah. Okay, great. I see that you encourage a lot of people to define success, or help them define success on their own terms. How do you define success?
How do I define success? Success can change in definition based on the time, or the what's the best word for that? Based on the phase of our life.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, based on the phase of our life we are in. Like, success meant to me very different things when I came here, first time to Canada, and I didn't speak English, and oh my gosh, success means very different things. At that time, for me, success meant to speak like other Canadians, so I don't have an accent. Now, today, success is a very different thing to me. Today I'm a mom, I'm a wife, and I have this huge mission about, building this business and delivering a greater good for the world. So to me, is to have this incredibly successful, contributing entrepreneurial path where I support women entrepreneurs to not only build their businesses, but build a better world. I have my very specific success defined for my personal health, for my relationships, for my personal development. I would love to travel one day when everything opens up again. I would love to travel to Asia, to China, to Korea, to Japan. That's definitely on my list of success. So who knows when we will be traveling again. So to me, success is really based on where we are in life, what we truly desire, not what other people want us to do, not what we are telling ourselves what we want to do, but what we truly yearn for.
All right. Great. On this one, I want to this might wrap up the full, I guess everything, what you're talking about, mindset, emotions, inner mastery. What does an optimized mindset look like in your view? What would you say? Because I mean, that's what I define optimism. When I talk about optimism on the show, I mean an optimized mindset. I don't just mean you just think things are good. I mean, how do we optimize our mindset? What does it look like?
Great minds think alike, Matthew. So optimized to me, just because, there was, you may have heard of the book, and there was so much talk about the growth mindset and the fixed mindset. And I never really connected to that terminology, and I guess words matter, right?
Yes.
And then I heard one time optimized, and I thought, how about we optimize? Because when we optimize, we make it more efficient and we align it with where we want to go. And that's how the optimized mindset came, because I would try to stay away from the growth mindset, because I don't just want to grow and grow and grow. I want to be efficient and effective and aligned with where I want to be. So how do I constantly fine-tune the way I think and my habitual thinking patterns so I can follow the path and go towards the destination where I want to be?
All right, I love it. All right, thanks very much. I'm going to go into the book, just a few things on the book, if you're still good for time.
Sure.
What do you mean by freedom for busy professionals? So you say you want to help them achieve freedom. What is that? Freedom from what?
Yeah. Okay. So, we needed to have a catchy subtitle for the book.
Okay.
When you post something on Amazon, like, the whole title, there's such a big thing about that. And I was brainstorming a lot on the concept as to what should I put there? What would be catchy for people to relate to? And freedom is always something, again, words have energy. When I tell you the word, and I will just do a quick aside, just because you guided me there. When I tell you the word shackled, what do you feel? What do you notice? Just focus on that word shackled.
Shackled. I feel oppressed and I feel rebellious. I want to break free. I guess freedom would be the antithesis to that, maybe.
Yeah. So now think of the word free.
I love the sound of it. I was just curious if you wanted to break it down more, because I got it. I think I got your answer now. I mean, it really has an emotional power, freedom. And I think that's what I want to do. I noticed you said something about free from their limitations. And this is a lot of the inner talk and things that you were talking about, that if you feel free from that, is to be more, it's part of an optimized mindset, I'm sure, not to have these restrictive thoughts, and also just to feel good about your life. So that's what freedom feels to me. Like, I feel, when I say that I'm happy, again, I don't mean that I'm just constantly waking up and screaming and dancing the whole time, but I do feel free. I feel like I've systematized the best ways that I've found are the optimal ways to live, and to put these things in on autopilot as far as my life. And I feel free to, I had one show actually I called Delimit to Be Free. And because I meant that if we delimit things, if we automatize and systematize things that are working for us, and I delimit my life in that way, then I can just feel free to operate and enjoy the thing and be present on the things that I'm enjoying. And I do feel like that in my diet and also in all my whole life. So freedom's a big word for me. I'm thinking out loud here too. I haven't used it in that way so much, except for in that article that I just told you, but I love this idea of, seeking freedom.
Yeah. And, now you also demonstrated a beautiful example, not that just you feel free, but the thought behind, because again, this is a perception, right? You create an association. When you do all of these things, then that produces the feeling of freedom, but it's both a thought and a perception and a feeling. So that's how all of it is connected.
Okay, great.
So I couldn't have asked for a better example that you would have just now said at the very end. So that just absolutely amazingly wraps up everything.
Okay. And your book there too, it includes some experiential exercises. Is that right? So it's more of a practical tool, is it? So how can this book help someone? Who's the book for, basically? Maybe give us that. Who wants to get this book? What?
Although I work in my private practice only with women entrepreneurs right now, this book, I honestly, is for every human being who wants to become better, smarter, more developed, and have more freedom in their thinking, in their feeling. And, I did sort of dedicate it to professionals because there's just so much stress and burden carried by the professional community. Often people go to work, they hate going there, but they go there because they need a paycheck, and this whole circle, and then it impacts the kids and kids today. And that could be, again, a totally different subject, different podcast. They're also struggling a lot despite the financial advances that we made. Children today are having massive issues with mental and emotional health. So I really wanted to create something that starts the conversation in terms of how we can change and why it is so important for us to understand the power of our nervous system and how it's connected to our thinking, to our feeling, and how we can become better human beings. So anyone who wants to grow personally, this book is dedicated to humanity. There are I shouldn't overstate that. There's several experiential practices, tiny little meditations, tiny little visualizations. And I also have a link to an MP3 to an audio recording that people can just download totally free from my website. I think it may be around 10 minutes long or something like that, and many other smaller practices.
All right. Well, that sounds really excellent. Sounds like a great tool and something for everybody. Before we go off then, is there anything else you'd like to say that maybe I haven't asked you about that you think, oh, I think this would really tie it together? I wish you'd asked me that.
All I want to say that I'm extremely grateful that our paths crossed is that I got that one email in which I saw your name, and then for some reason, I intuitively felt I have never done it before, and I connected and I saw your website. I'm like, gosh, there's a Nova Scotian living in South Korea. We are crazy about South Korean cinematography. My daughter is crazy about K-pop. And I'm just absolutely grateful for these incredible coincidences that happen in our life, and that we connected together on two different, parts of the globe. And hopefully together we can make a better world.
All right. Well, I feel very much the same way. I'm enjoying these conversations that I'm having with various people, and I particularly enjoyed our conversation today. So I thank you very much for coming on. Before I ask people specifically where they can find you, we'll do that. I just want to say a final word to everybody at large. To please share this interview. If you found any value in this and you know somebody who could get value from Edita's message, please share it with that person. I think people underestimate the power of sharing. You never know when it's going to hit somebody, and you might set them on a pathway that's going to lead to a big change in their life by discovering Edita or and her ideas. So please do that. Of course, please ask questions. Ask me questions. Ask Edita questions. You can do that right on the YouTube page, right underneath in the comment section. Ask a question, make a comment, something you liked or something you'd like to know more about. You can also do this on the Mr. Brightside Facebook page, facebook.com/MatthewBolton.ca. Please ask questions there. Anything directed at Edita, I will make sure she gets to look at. So I'll thank you guys for all of that stuff. So Edita, where should people go if they want to connect with you and learn more about you and your work?
Oh, absolutely. They can come to my website, editaatteck.com. There's a contact form. They can connect with me on Facebook. I'm quite active. I have a Facebook page, Edita Atteck. I'm also very active on LinkedIn. That's probably my main social media platform. So please connect with me on LinkedIn. And if you have questions, feel free to reach out.
Well, that's perfect. Thanks very much. Edita, again, one more time to thank you for coming on. I really enjoyed myself today. I very much appreciate it.
Thank you, me too.
Okay, and everybody else, go check out Edita Atteck. Awaken your inner leader, optimize your mindset, and optimize your life, which is what we talk about all the time on the show, and maybe let Edita help you out with that. And I'll see you guys next time.
Mr. Brightside, your time out to refresh, refuel, and refocus your mind and energy toward building an optimistic framework for flourishing. Life is good. It's up to you to choose the bright side.